All right, my guy Kaz, we are live, bro. Thanks for taking the time to come on, man. I
Of,
appreciate it.
of course, man. It's been in the works for a while, huh? We finally made it
Y-
happen.
Yeah, dude, man. That's the tough thing. You know how it is being overseas, like coordinating, time schedules, things like that, and even technical difficulties like we just had.
It's the worst, dude. It's the worst.
Yeah, yeah. But hey, appreciate you coming on. If you could just introduce yourself to the audience, your name, where you're from, where you're currently playing, club, position, and then
Yes,
yeah, we'll
sir.
just free flowing chat, no structure here. Let's just enjoy ourselves, have
Beautiful.
some banter. That's about it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, I'm Michael Kozielek. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. Bounced around a bit overseas, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, 28 years old, and currently playing for the Chicago House. Played primarily left back this year, a little bit in the midfield, but usually find me in the 6 or 8 or right there at left back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Scoring
Mhm.
some bangers from outside the 18, bro.
We're trying, man. We're trying.
I love it, bro. Yeah, so if you could just take us through your journey a little bit, when you started playing the game, your first club, uh, you know, college,
100%.
things like that.
Yeah, so I out of college, so I went to Butler University. I was at DePaul my freshman year. Had a good season. We had a lot of talented guys. It was just a strange place for a lot of people. A lot of transfers out. I ended up transferring to Butler. Finished out my college career there. Had a great time. Loved the program.
Mm-hmm,
Had a lot of good boys there
mm-hmm.
in that program. And then straight out of college, did the overseas route. So I bounced out to Sweden, which you've got some experience in over
Mhm,
there.
mhm.
We linked later on in that journey,
Yeah.
but the first year I was out there, I played for Nordvarmland FF, kind of out in the boonies, in the mountains north of Karlstad. Uh,
Mhm.
really cool experience. Sweden's got a special place in my heart now, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
It's,
yeah.
it's beautiful, man. Good people,
Yeah.
beautiful, fun footy. But yeah, so I started out in Div 3. So for people who don't know, that's like the fifth tier in Sweden. Um, I was kind of honestly bummed about it when I was younger because you're just a young, ambitious kid and you're like, I know I can do more than this, but everyone's like, you got
For
to pay your
sure.
dues. So I got my
For
foot in the
sure.
door, and
How old were you when you went out there?
so I would have been like 22, probably 21, going on 22, right out of college. By the time I
Mhm.
got out there, I think I might have just turned 22. But yeah, so then we did that run for the first year. We ended up actually getting promoted into Div 2. So
That's
that was a
awesome.
pretty cool experience. I mean, promotions to experience them at any level is just a cool little thing
For
to see
sure.
a team and a community get behind.
For sure. And you guys had a pretty good fan base out there, even though you were in the boonies, right?
Shockingly, yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah.
when we had like our derby games and everything, like the whole town was out. So you get like that 1,200, 1,500 range, of people popping out.
Decent.
So cool little
Yeah.
experience. Got the mountains in
Yeah.
the background.
For sure.
And then so we ended up getting promoted after my first season there, and I decided to resign. Went back and had a pretty decent entry year to Div 2. I think
Mhm.
looking back on it now, I should have expected probably more hiccups at a younger age because you just don't
Mhm.
realize the stress on a club when you promote.
For
Um,
sure. For sure.
Entering a better level, you're usually financially strapped that first year. You know how it
Mhm.
goes, all of the
Yeah.
factors. But we had a fairly respectable season. I think we ended right around the middle of the table. And my plan after that was to return again for another season. I was going to try and look around for a few teams in the meanwhile. Trained with like Linköping for a little bit. Uh,
Mhm. Mikey Hartman and Knotic out there.
yeah, man.
The
I was
boys.
trying to chase that U.S. wave out there, dude. I saw the
Yeah.
Americans, so I was trying to pop over.
Yeah.
Had a good time there, great experience. Really came down to the work visa issues is typically what you'd find. You could
For sure.
once you were at Div 2, you could bounce around really any Div 2 place that could house foreigners and stuff, but breaking into that Div 1 entry was really the tough one.
Facts.
With
Facts.
no EU passport, that was kind of my battle for the 2 years prior already. You come
Yeah. Yeah.
a good season, you're like, there's no way I can't at least get a sniff. And the minute they hear you don't
Exactly.
have an EU passport, they're like, you better be world class, buddy.
Exactly. Bro, I tell all my boys, I'm sure you do the same. Anyone who has got an EU passport, I'm like, yo, get out of the US. That's absolute gold. And go
Oh,
over to Scandinavia.
you
It's
got
that
the golden
simple.
ticket, dude. Get out as young as you can and start making it happen.
Facts.
Without a
Yo,
doubt. No,
bro, so if you could just, like if people don't know what we're talking about, because I don't think people really do know until you actually go over there and
Yeah,
experience it. That's why I have this podcast. If
100%.
you could just, let the younger guys know who may want to chase the dream if they don't have an option in the U.S., so they don't want to stay in the U.S.
Mhm.
They want to discover the options in Europe, which I highly suggest. I'm sure you do as well. How does
100%.
that kind of work, that work visa thing,
Yeah.
specifically for Sweden?
So like Scandinavia specifically, there's loads of tiers. There's like 8 or 9 tiers. But the top 3 tiers, for people that don't know, are considered fully professional tiers. So in order to play with them, a club has to provide you with a work visa
Hmm.
to everything, pay you legitly, have the paperwork for all of that. So what you'll find typically is a lot of Americans that do the Scandinavia route but don't have an EU passport will bounce around, make a name in the lower levels, try to work up, but you kind of hit this ceiling where it's a really tough commitment for a lot of teams, because as a foreigner, you're going to cost more, one, to register. You're going to cost more because you're going to have a minimum salary that's usually higher than what they can pay locals.
Hmm. Hmm.
So all these factors come into play when you start hitting that level, and
For
you
sure.
really have to be a no-brainer, worth the investment. Almost more of a finished product. If you're a foreigner, you have to be
Yeah.
close to your finished product. They know what they're going to get. You're at your peak. It's a little harder to try and have someone take a chance on you to see where you'll develop at that point.
Exactly.
I would
Exactly.
say from personal experience, that's usually what I found. Now,
Hmm.
you'll get the people that have that lucky, whatever it is, every once in a while, and it's an awesome
Hmm.
story.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but typically, that's usually what you'll find in most countries. It just depends on how many tiers and what they consider
Yeah.
professional. But without
Hmm.
EU, you'll find that same thing. The EU passport is the golden ticket in order for clubs to bring you in for cheap. It's
Yep.
risk on their part, especially as a foreigner if you're younger,
Hmm.
and it opens a lot of doors in that sense.
For sure. No, and to add on to that, like just like you were saying, I think a lot of clubs, especially in these, good footballing countries like Sweden, Germany, things like that, they want to try to develop the youth in their community because,
100%.
as we both know, as the listeners should know, football is a business at the end of the day. They want to develop a guy from a young age,
Mhm.
say bring him up in their system and then, sell him
Right.
and, let people know that he came from their club. And, it's a win-win for, the club and, the player.
Oh,
Um,
100%. Yeah, that's a tough thing. I think that when you're younger, if you don't grow up in a culture that has such a high mentality and such a high devotion to footy, it's sometimes hard because you're like, I know I'm better than this guy.
for
I should
sure, for sure.
definitely, but you don't see the whole business model like you just described behind it. It's
Exactly.
at the end of the day, we get to play and it's fun, but it is a business at the end of the day, and that's how decisions are always going to be made.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
also, I think, especially, man, if you're a defensive midfielder, if you're a defender, and your quality is shown through the game, and it's not shown on the stat sheet, that's
100.
also tough to make it up because they'll be like, oh, yo, how many goals do you have? How many assists? But if you're not that guy putting up points,
Hmm.
even though you're a really good asset to the team,
Right.
maybe they can't present it to the board.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, there seems to be that trend, right, where there's definitely like what you'd call the money-making positions.
Exactly.
Clubs when they're looking at foreigners, a lot of times they're looking for the 10. They're looking for a striker, a hold up boy. Every once in a while, if there's just a kid who's big, you can't teach height, they'll go for the center back. But
For
yeah, left
sure.
back in certain positions are definitely a lot tougher to try and
Facts.
shine in and have people realize what they're getting out of that. It's a
Exactly.
time outside back, some of those holding mid positions.
Hmm.
They try to
Doing
almost
the
say
dirty work.
the dirty work boys. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
It's tough to translate that to a stat sheet. So you just gotta hope that there's a
for
good
sure.
eye watching you, man. There's so much to it.
For sure. Yeah. So what happened that year? So Division 2, how'd you guys end up doing? What was your
Division
path?
Yeah, Division 2 had a good season, moved up a bit higher in the midfield that year from
Hmm.
playing outside back. Got a handful of goals, was playing well. That offseason for me mentally was kind of the big one. I thought that I was like, if I go back to Sweden this third year, it's going to be kind of a Div 1 or bust thing for me. And
Yeah.
that's
Is that
where
when we linked up?
That's when I ended up meeting you through Avador, man, when we were putting in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
sessions out in the snow, dude.
yeah.
So yeah, we got out there with my buddy David Avador, met up with you as well. And at that point, I had no team. I kind of always knew
Mm-hmm.
I could fall back to my old club.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, I was really trying to grind for a Div 1 spot. So went on a few trials, kind of was getting back the same thing. It's work visa, like you, this, that. Can you get a EU passport? I was just like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and fortunately enough, when I was going through all that, I was just posting stuff that I was trialing. And I had a buddy, an American, already playing in Australia.
Mm.
And he had sent my clips and everything to his coach before he even reached out. And then put him in contact with me, asked if I'd be interested, reached out. And I was at that point, I was like, you know what? Not a terrible change up. A
Mm.
cool market. There will be a lot of comfortability in going somewhere that's English speaking.
For sure.
I was willing to take the risk at that point. So I ended up booking a flight out of Stockholm, flew to Australia, like an 18-hour flight or some crazy strategy like that.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
went down there and I ended up playing for a team in Brisbane called Albany Creek.
Okay.
Creek Excelsior. They were in, I don't know what that even be considered. I think like the third tier technically in Australia. So
Mm-hmm.
Australia has one professional tier. It's A League,
Mm.
and then after that you have it's like MPL or something, and then
Yup.
whatever, state 1, state 2, all that. So I think we were state 1,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up having a pretty good year there. I think we ended up. So it was strange. I was there signed, played halfway through the season, was playing really well in like the winger spot and like a diamond.
Nice.
And and then it was a new little role that was fun. And then ended up getting contacted by another buddy, David Caban. I'm sure you've heard the name. He recently
Mm-hmm.
retired, but another good boy from up this way. And he was like, "Hey, we got a team down in Melbourne that I'm
Mm.
playing for." It was a little bump in the level, and Melbourne was kind of the hot spot to be. So for people that don't know Aussie football, because I learned it kind of on the fly out there,
Mm-hmm.
it's broken up by like the districts. You got like the whole Brisbane, Queensland area up top. Then you've got the Sydney region, Melbourne, Western
Mm-hmm.
Australia, and your typical 2 strongest markets are Sydney and Melbourne.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was up in Brisbane having a great time. That team ended up actually winning the season out after I left, but I
Wow.
got traded down to Beaumaris, which was the team in Melbourne I played for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was nice. It was a good change of pace. I loved my time up in Brisbane.
Mm.
Beautiful weather, good people. But
Mm.
Melbourne was cool too. Different type of city. The level of footy was a little bit more, dedicated to it. It was a little bit bigger
Mm-hmm.
market. And dude, I had a great season down there. I loved both sides of it. We ended up
Nice.
finishing maybe like 4th or something down in Melbourne. So we had like a good season.
Mm.
Had options to go back and then kind of shot myself in the foot. Australia was a strange one because there was no work visa issues or any of that, but I got
Mm-hmm.
a visitor's visa when I first went there because it's
Okay.
super cheap. It was like maybe $25 or something. It got approved like
Mm-hmm.
on the spot. So they
Wow.
can bring you in for pretty cheap right off the bat. It's a no risk thing. But as Americans, if you want to stay in Australia for your second year, you have to stay and they call you farm work. You have to either go get
Yeah, I
like
think you talked about this. Yeah.
an agricultural job or something out like working
Yeah.
out back with like cattle, or you
Uh-huh.
can sometimes get like a serving position like in certain regions and it like
Really.
counts.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, I was just in a place in my life where I was so tunnel vision. I didn't see the
Yes.
big picture of like, I'm not going to stay here, put in all this stuff. I just want to do footy. So
Yes.
I booked after the season and kind of at that point sealed my fate of not really getting back in,
Yeah.
at least by
Uh-huh.
any easy route.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a trip down there, man. Aussie football was really fun. The people down there are just different breed. They're
Yeah, I hear.
really good people. There's some crazy athletes down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the footy
How
level,
are they welcoming?
very, very,
Yeah,
especially
that's
to
awesome.
Americans. It's kind of like a been there, done that for them. They're so used to
Yeah.
American culture, and like so many Americans are actually down there all the time
Yeah.
that they're like, you're almost not even cool or new to them. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
another American boy. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, they were super cool, man. Good locker rooms down there. I'd say the
Mm.
banter in Australia is top notch. That's where it's like,
Really?
oh man.
Really? That's interesting, man.
Oh, our team in Melbourne had just some crazy traditions. We would do like a
Uh-huh.
little like pasta dinner once a week in the
Love
clubhouse.
that. It's essential.
It's essential, dude. You got to get the boys together. But
Yes.
every time somebody would have to give like a recap of their week, like something that they did during the week, and it would always just turn into jokes, man. Everybody,
I love that.
There.
Yeah.
But it was really good stuff, man. Popped out of Australia after playing there for a year.
Well, how would you compare like the football between Sweden and Australia?
I would say Australian soccer resembled a lot more of American footy. It was kind of more athletic based, direct run and gun. You obviously ran into some skillers and stuff, but it wasn't as frequent. I felt like playing in Sweden was a lot more tactical.
Yeah, they're very tactical there.
Very tactical.
I was so surprised when I went over there, you know, how tactical they are.
100%. I mean, before going out there, I had no idea about Scandinavian, football, and besides like the major names that you hear that come out of countries. But yeah, playing there was a cool experience for the tactics. We actually had a Swedish, Serbian coach. Super good dude. It was kind of the perfect storm of who I got to play with at still a relatively young age.
For sure.
I played with a lot of really cool guys that played in Ukraine, played at Red Star, played at really cool places. So that helped me, I think, develop a ton. I was just fortunate to have older guys that were tailing off, but were cool with helping the young guys really, start to ball out, giving them the confidence.
For sure.
Yeah, but I'd say definitely more tactical in Sweden. Bit more physical in the sense of just like Swedish people are bred different.
Yeah.
Like, Australians played pretty physical footy for sure, but they're just not that big. But I mean, I got crunched in Sweden a few times. I still remember, dude. I still have nights from a few tackles I copped out there.
Bro, they're nice people off the pitch, but once they're on, bro, crunches,
they want to be your friend right after they crack you. Like, dude.
Yes, that's football, though, you know?
That's it.
Not
that's
friends on the pitch, off the pitch, we're boys.
That's the beauty of it, man. But that's the cool culture I think you find a lot in Europe too. It's growing here, and people are starting to become more like that. But I mean, you remember probably playing youth soccer out here. You would hate kids on the field, and then you're chirping them in the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. Talking shit about them, all the nonsense.
Super competitive here, but yeah, man, it was cool. So then after Australia, popped over to the States for the off season, was hanging out, was kind of pigeonholed by some work visa issues. I wasn't really ready to play in the States. I didn't have great offers, and I knew at that point I wasn't tough market to break into once you're in like that 23 range, 24 range, unless really big things overseas. So I was having a little bit of trouble finding something I liked in the States. Popped over to Sweden to train again with my old club. Figured not the worst thing in the world, just at least keep playing, figure out what's going on. And then my American buddy, who I've known as a player beforehand, Matt Poland, he had retired due to injury and stuff, but ended up getting a head coaching gig at a team that he played for a few years in Finland. So it was a major first step for him. And then I was his first signing that he brought over. He knew I was in Sweden, just kind of figuring it out. He knew I wasn't thrilled with the whole thing going back to the same club. So he's like, hey, I got a new opportunity for you, new market. You're still in Scandinavia. They were able to work out a work visa like right away. It was Finland was kind of like the last safe haven for Americans kind of that year. And still is if you're looking for an actual a country that can give you a work visa.
And they're so good to Americans over there.
Oh, I mean, I don't have enough good things to say about it. Yeah, I was treated like a king by those people. They were the nicest people in the world to me. They really were.
Dude, I tell everyone, Finnish and Swedish people are some of the nicest people I've ever met, really.
It's hard to explain until you're kind of submerged in it. But I remember right off the bat being there, it was so cold. I was like, this is crazy. And our goalkeeper coach took me to go do like winter swimming. He's like, all right, you're going to be finished. You're going to do some winter swimming now. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Doesn't sound good. But essentially just sitting in the hottest sauna you've ever been in and then doing a little polar plunge and just doing that on repeat. Man, did I sleep like a baby that night, dude. But
you're lucky you bring a couple beers in there as well.
That's what I'm saying. After a big win, after a big win, there was a few beers in there. Yeah, dude. So it was just cool stuff like that, nonstop. People were super welcoming. Loads of sauna culture, which I know you've got to be a fan of.
Oh God, nothing better, man. Yo, I was just in a gym out here in Dallas,
Yeah.
and bro, I was just gonna tweet this, like, and I'm going to tweet this later. Bro, Americans do not know how to use a sauna, bro. They go in fully clothed with
Dude.
with sweatshirts and things like that. Bring
Yep.
the phone inside. I'm like, yo, what are you guys doing? No,
Dude,
you know
it couldn't be more backwards here, sauna
that
culture.
defeats the point, bro.
Could not be more backwards here. It is
Yeah,
we're mad disrespectful to sauna culture. It is. You got to get in that sauna, dude. You got to get naked with the boys. You gotta really let loose in there, and
get
then
that towel going, throw some water, room the weights.
Oh, exactly, dude. Get in there. Just enjoy the company. Leave your phone somewhere else. None of that.
Exactly.
Like you said, if anything, bring in a beer with you. That's all you get to bring in.
Exactly.
But yeah, dude, it was great. It was great. So I played for a club called Sporting Christina out there. What can I say about it, man? We had a cool little town. The fans were unbelievable. That was probably the coolest crowd I played in front of in Europe.
Really interesting.
Games in North Varmland were super cool and stuff like that. There were some cool games, but in Finland we would play this club called Kraft, which was the town right over in Narvas, and they had a long running rivalry,
really?
like years plus. Yeah, it was really cool. And playing them every year, twice a year, I mean, home and away, that was like both towns pretty much shut down, and everyone's just at that game.
It's awesome, dude.
Yeah, and it's cool. And we were luckily when I was there, got to experience a handful of good results against them, a few ties, a few wins and stuff. So it was really cool afterwards too, because the towns are so close. You go out to party afterwards, and the other team's at like the same bar that you're at, and it was really cool. It was one of those experiences, like you said before. It's brutal on the field. You guys are just getting after each other. It's a good 90 minutes, but then afterwards you'd go have a few beers with both teams.
That's awesome.
And it was really cool guys on both teams. But man, I'll tell you, Scandinavia's got some hidden ballers, dude. Not only like local talent, but they have some guys that, just kind of rinse out of certain systems and try to find an easy, cool place to live, bring their families. I played against some absolute studs in Finland where I was super impressed for how small of a country. It's
That's interesting.
Real ballers.
Yeah, they're technical over there, some of the guys, huh?
They've got some nasty wingers, man. Some young kids that are coming up that I played against. That I was impressed. I was sitting there, and it's kind of like that coming of age thing too. Like you start getting a little older and you appreciate the game in different ways. For sure.
Yes.
I was younger. It was the me show. What are my stats? What am I doing? Wins were great. Obviously, the team was great, but it's so much more the me show. And then when I was starting to get to Finland, I was like closer to my prime of that 25, 26 age where you're like really enjoying your football. It was a great experience, but it was the first few years where I was out there where I was like, it's really cool seeing young kids ball and getting to talk to them out and seeing what they're up to. So I got to know a few players out there, still stay in touch with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they've got some young ballers out there for sure, dude. Keep them on the map. Keep them on. You popped into Finland for a little bit. Yeah, you were training out there for a minute, right?
Yeah, I was going to sign with a team out there. Didn't end up going. The money wasn't as good as I thought. And then what did I do after that? I think went over to Israel. But I loved it there, man. Bro, the sauna culture, the people, the girls, man, it was chill, bro.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean,
man, I was staying in an Airbnb. There was a sauna in Airbnb. I was like, this is a dream right now.
Oh yeah, that's the crazy part there too. Is it's like we think of saunas as such like a gym thing or like a lux thing, but it's like I mean, realistically, you think about a sauna is not that expensive to build. You can even build a decent sauna for cheap, but everybody has a sauna. If it's not in their house, it's in their backyard, and you're like, oh, this is great
for sure. Yeah. No, there's been many studies that like Finnish men, like I think live longer, and it's due to the sauna culture.
Dude. I mean, I felt immune system wise when I was living out there, regardless of the winters and stuff. I never got sick out there. I felt fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But yeah, man, the footy was great out there. How did
you played as a 10, huh?
Played as a 10 out there.
Yeah, you were scoring bangers, bro.
Talk about oh happy days, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the perfect storm. It was cool because going over there with an American coach obviously made things very comfortable. And I had known him as a player beforehand, which was cool, not only for myself to get an opportunity that was new like that, but to also see him grow in and be able to help him in his first year. Because I was, you're playing for more than yourself. Definitely when you get older, you can realize that. I was like, every game means a little more too when you're trying to, have your buddy have a great first season, make it a cool experience for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think something huge, man, I'm sure you 100% agree, is like when you have that confidence from the coach, man, you're enjoying, man. You're just enjoying it. Like you feel like you could do no wrong. Obviously you're playing footy in the right way. You do what he asks and you play the role, but it's, you feel much more free, and that's when you play your best football.
I mean, I'll tell you what, it changed me as a player those 2 years. It was like, they say a lot of your development is done super early and there's not a ton of changing that. I was a weird one. I feel like
I don't believe that though.
Yeah.
Obviously you want it to be early. Like it's more preferred, but it's not like, all right, you're done. Like you can't develop anymore,
For sure. And I feel like people draw such a hard line in their mind, and like their coaching mentality sometimes is like, well, if it's not by, 16 now, it's over. And you're like, oh, exactly. But I'm just starting to ball. I might be 25, but you get those little level ups. And that was after that year, there was definitely just like an edge to my game from the confidence of the coach and letting me play in that role for the first time. I was I was playing some fun footy, man.
Exactly, bro. Environment is everything. And I remember I went to when I was playing a club out in New York, I went to a meeting, and this English coach was just like, all right, at 14, you're done developing technically. And I was like, what is this guy saying? What? So why? So we don't have to do, that's his excuse that we don't do passing drills at training? Come on now, man.
No, I feel, some of the stuff you hear, right, when you get older and you've actually
crazy.
Like, I couldn't agree less.
Exactly. And part of that is like you get frustrated because then young players, they just have like no hope,
Right. It kills a lot of potential talent too young, where you're like, it's not fair to put that on kids, because certain kids just don't get the right atmosphere, the right environment to be around until, by circumstance, some of those kids don't get until they're 16, but they end up being absolute ballers. And you hear about it too, man. That's why I don't believe it's like, like Diego Costa didn't play organized footy until he was 19. It's like, okay, well, there we go. There we go.
Exactly.
Yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, dude, Finland was great. The first year we had a real baller year. I think we finished third. We were like one spot. I know it was a brutal one towards the end too. We dropped 2 like real bad games on just it's just like, those circus goals you give up where you're like, how did that happen? It was one of those kind of shots in the football. We ended up having a really good finish for that first year. And then
you had a good beard going as well, huh?
Oh man, I had one going out there. I think it grew double time when I lived in Scandinavia. I knew I needed.
Yeah. That's sauna, man.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I was soaring. So yeah, had the beard out there, man. The bleached hair just was a different person.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta do what you gotta do out there, dude. So went back for a second year after that first year. Got the club treated me really well, gave me a good contract to go back. So gave it a second run in Finland. That was the first year that the COVID, everything happened. So that was just a nightmare getting out there. I mean, told that story like a million times. It's just, I had 4 trips out there, essentially. First 3 didn't make it. And finally on the 4th got out there. So
didn't you get put in jail or something like that?
I did, man. I was in airport jail for that one. That was my my 3rd trip out there. I made it all the way to Helsinki. So I made it through. Got to England.
Wow. Were you paying for these flights, or was the club doing it?
So I had my flight out there covered. It was going to be into like my first like paycheck back in. So I was fronting it, but I was worried. I was like, okay, perfect. So the first few I was able to like reschedule. I think I lost my ass maybe on one ticket. I don't remember. And the 3rd try, I get all the way out there, and I'm traveling with another American who we signed as our keeper. And he had a Croatian passport, so he thought he was good in the EU. So he was like, oh, this is like my year. I figured if anything, I would probably get stopped and sent back. But we made it to smooth sailing, got upgraded to first class while we were on our way out there. I said, there's
Decent.
no way we get stopped now. I was like, charcuterie
Yeah.
board in the sky, we're good.
Jeez.
So we get to London, had a little layover, and
Uh-huh.
we go to our gate to board to go straight to Helsinki. And right away, I heard the guy in front of me get asked, do you have are you a Finnish citizen or do you have a work visa, proof of work the prior year? So I was like, oh, perfect. I've got my work visa from last year in my wallet still that I kept just in case I ever for this situation. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. So now I was like, my buddy will probably get through just with an EU passport. So I go first,
Yeah.
show the guy my work visa. He looks at it. He's like, cool, you're through. My buddy's up next. They look at it. They're like, okay, do you have family or anyone there? He's like, no, I'm playing footy there, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, last year. He's like, no, this is my first year. They turned him away at the gate. So my buddy, after fighting with him, gets turned away at the gate. He's like, all right, man, I'll see you. He's all pissed off. I'm like, all right, guess I'm trying this. So I'm like, I made it. So there's no way, it doesn't time.
Boom, you checked it off.
Exactly. I was like, all right, this is perfect. I'm in country. It'd be a waste to send me back at this point, regardless. Exactly. So I get there. I get to the first gate. Everything's good. Show them my stuff. I go through. And then you get to the final checkout, wherever it is at immigration, and I got there. And it's just the biggest cop ever. He's huge. And he's just talking. He's like, all right, man. He's like, so what are you doing here? I was like, here to play soccer. And he's like, all right, what club? And I told him. And he was like, okay, I know the club. You're not lying. I was like, yeah. No, I was like, I got a. And he's like, what, do you have a work visa from last year? I was like, I do. And then I have a renewed one for this year in country. And he's like, okay. And he looks at it. And he's like, I don't know if we're letting athletes through right now or something. And I was like, oh no, this isn't what I want to hear, dude. I was like, here though. He's like, all right, I'm gonna call my supervisor over. Even bigger cop walks over. This guy is huge. And I'm like, all right, what's up? And he's like, all right, you're gonna come with me. And I was like, oh, okay. We'll probably have a chat. I can get through if this guy will have a chat with me. Instead, he just walked my ass straight to airport jail. He said, all right, follow me. We're gonna hold you here for a while. He goes, I'm gonna have someone come down and get your story and statement and stuff. They took my passport, took my old work visa, everything. I just had my backpack. And then I sat down there with some lady from Germany for a while, a dude from Morocco. We were just having a quick chat. Everybody was kind of pissed off or trying to have a laugh.
Oh my.
And after a few hours of sitting down there, a guy came and got me. And he was like, okay, so I understand you're trying to get in. You worked here last year. You play soccer. Yeah. Yes. Everything's there. You can call my president at the club. He can confirm whatever. And they were like, yeah, that's not going to be necessary. They're like, instead, can you sign this paper? And I was like, what's it for? And it was a long paper. And the poor guy had broken English, no fault to his own. He's obviously Finnish. And he was trying to read it to me. And I was like, oh, I can read it. You don't got to read it. He insisted on reading it to me. And he was essentially reading me my rights. That's what I figured. And he was like, all right, so you used an expired work visa to try and get into the country. And I was like, no, dude. I was like, I just had that as proof. I didn't try to do anything with what I had it. And the guy's like, all right, well, I need you to sign this because that could be a fine. And I was like, well, am I getting deported? And he's like, yeah. He goes, we'll get you a flight out tomorrow. And I was like, I'm not going to sign the then, man. I was like, deport me. So they let me out to go to a Burger King real quick, get some food. And then, then kept me in jail all night. Next morning, got to go home finally. We went to go get my passport. They walked me to get my passport from security. And then security looked at me and they're like, okay, we'll take your bags and walk you to the plane. And I was like, cool. And then they were like, but we have to cuff you. It's protocol. And I was like,
what?
I was like, oh no. Wait, so I got cuffed. And then the lady's like, if you don't mind me asking, what happened? So I explained how we were walking to the terminal and she's like, I think someone messed up the paperwork or something because we shouldn't have to cuff you for that. And she's like, but your passport thing is, or your ticket's stamped priority security. So they had to walk me on the plane cuffed. Everybody on the plane was like, what did this psycho do? And then
did you feel like a G walking through the airport cuffed?
I mean, I was like, this is, I guess, kind of gangster, but at the same time, I scared all my friends on the plane. I was like, everyone just here for a while. And I was like, what am I going to do? Explain my way out of this? I was like, whatever. So they uncuffed me on the plane and I got shipped back. And then for the final one, now that I'm not going back, I can share it fully. But for my fourth flight back over, how I got over is I had to essentially fabricate a relationship on paper. So I had to like apply for this like relationship visa that was like during COVID specifically. So I had a friend of a friend help me out and sort me out with all that, and then paperwork passed through, and I got through with flying colors, man.
Love that.
Whatever.
All right, so for all the boys trying to go over to Europe, just try to find yourself a girl real quick, you know?
That's what I'm saying. How bad do you want it, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah, man, it was fun, dude. So that was a cool little year out there. We had rougher, couldn't get some players in, a lot of stuff, but finished mid-table. And then, yeah, man, came back to Chicago for this first year back in the States since college, and played for Chicago House, new NISA team, inaugural year.
You killed it this season, didn't you?
Yeah, man, had a good season. We played well, had some real ballers on the team. It was kind of a bit of a homecoming, not just for playing back in the home city, but got to play with like 5 good guys I grew up with that did their own
that's the best
directions and all came back. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That's like a blessing in this sport. You know, you're lucky to get to say you do that. So to be able to do that last year was super cool. And now I'm just riding it out for the long haul, man. Chicago.
That's awesome, bro. That's great stuff. So how would you compare the football over in NISA compared to like Sweden and Finland, like level wise, you know, how players play and things like that?
Yeah, I would say now currently NISA is I mean there's a good standard. I didn't really know what to expect being back in the States, to be completely honest. And I mean, I was surprised. There was a lot of young kids that I was like, these kids, I mean, do have a shot. It was very comparable, I'd say, when you're playing kind of the better teams in the leagues I was in personally, right around like that. The top is you can get amateur before a lot of pro, or like Finland being on a work visa. Those leagues were very comparable to a lot of NISA. I'd say the 60% overlap. I'd say maybe there's a little bit more depth and consistency here in NISA. Whereas you have, you know, those majority of your teams in Finland that were good, you'd have a few that were great, but then you'd have a few that were just rough, usually relegated. But I think that's like the true system out there. You see that more because there's a promotion relegation system, and you know, if you're not going to put in the work as the clubs, you get exposed. And here we've just bigger country, loads of depth. Athletes. So I'd say that there's just a bit more consistency, is like even your bad teams in NISA were a little better than the bad teams in Finland, like specifically, or Sweden.
For sure.
The biggest difference, but a lot of, I mean, a lot of overlap. You get a lot of those middle-aged, younger ballers in both scenarios. And then now, like me getting older, you get the few old guys that return and start doing their thing like that. But yeah, it was cool. Very comparable.
Love it, bro. Love it, man. Yeah, so if you could just, you know, take us through, you know, in season, little day in your life, you know, when you wake up, what you have for breakfast, when you guys train, lunch.
For sure.
If you ever saw that, I'm sure you've seen it. You know that Norwich City player they had? I forgot who it was. Like they took a nice little day in the life. I always like to try to behind the scenes, you know, what you're doing.
Yeah. So for us, like this year, and Europe was a little different. I can get into that, just scheduling wise. But here, obviously took it very professionally. We were lucky. We had a very, you know, as a startup, you never know really what to expect. But we got things going pretty quickly. Got a clubhouse down here in Pilsen, like where we train. So I'd usually wake up around 8-ish, get up, have some water, cup of coffee, maybe a banana or something. I'm not a crazy eater before I train, just like to get a little something.
You're a big coffee guy, though, which I love.
Big coffee guy, man. I'll tell you what, I could drink coffee before every game I line up for.
Love it.
Give me the juice. So, yeah, usually a little coffee, water, a little something, some grapes, banana, whatever it is in the morning, something light. We usually get to the clubhouse around 9. Had about an hour to ourselves as a team in there. You could go see the physio. You could go talk with coaches, go over some film, just chill with the boys. We would have little snacks and stuff provided. So that was nice. Or coffee, whatever it is. Get changed. And then we had like a little 2-minute drive from our clubhouse to the field. all show up at the field. Sessions typically ran anywhere from when we're early in the week, midweek, 2-hour session ish. And then getting closer to game day, tapering off a little bit, 1.5-hour session, a little quicker, whatever it is, go over some set pieces, less strenuous. And then, after training, you get done usually around wherever that is, noonish. We'd head back to the locker room, shower up. Again, if you want to hit the compression boots, anything like that, get a massage. That was your time. And then we had meals, thankfully, through a company, Eat Clean Chicago, out here that helped us out with all of our like lunches and stuff. So they sent us little pre-meal. So we were typically eating a lot of chicken, rice, vegetables, sometimes mashed potatoes, whatever it was, some beef of some sort. But your pretty standard diet, some sort of meat, greens, grain, keeping it pretty light. And then just water. I mean, for me personally, I'm a big water guy. I'm not not huge outside of that. Water for me is usually so slugging tons of water, especially when it's hot. And then once we'd wrap up at the clubhouse, you're kind of free to do your thing at the end of the day. Some boys work, whatever. I would typically come home, do another stretch if I had to, or yoga later in the day. Really just kind of wind down. You're full, a little nap or something after training if you can do it. And then at night we would kind of just it depended on the night, let loose. We were doing some podcast work, just staying busy at night, stuff that wasn't strenuous in the body, but just still getting work done, little side project, working on a lot of that. Getting closer to game day, or once we were in the swing of season, knocking out some film, usually at night, from past games or whatever was coming up previously, catching a game if we could, to see what's going on with who we were going to play next. And then then a dinner, heavier dinner. I'm a big dinner guy. I like to go all in.
Same.
All in dinner. And I mean, that was anywhere from, we were down here in Pilsen. We were fortunate. We got so many good taco spots and burritos. I spent up a lot. I went a lot of steak tacos this year. A lot of steak burritos. Nice. Yeah, really, really hitting those home. But dude, just a nice dinner to get you going, something that won't have you too sluggish in the morning when you're going again. And that was typically like our walkthrough for a normal day, and that was your Monday through Friday for the most part. And then Saturdays you're either getting ready for a game at night or whatever that is, laying low in the morning, or how the road life goes, traveling around, hotels, walkthroughs in the morning before your games. Moving, and that's what most days look like.
Love it. Just for the guys and girls listening, in terms of film, like for you as a left back, if you're watching film, what are you looking for? What type of trends are you looking for, and how are you kind of analyzing film, or as a CDM, wherever you're playing?
I would say as a left back, there's two big ones that I usually look for when I'm looking at film. I'm looking at how dynamic is the right winger that I'm either going to be going up against, or that I went up against if I'm looking back on film. And then if I can get a good read on that, that'll typically tell me a little bit more if I'm going to cheat forward some games coming up, if I'm going to, really get after a kid that's not going to track back. Does he have a lazy trend of tracking back?
For sure.
Pressure down the line. And then I'm looking at usually the backline formation a lot of times, as far as how high are they keeping a backline? Our early whip ball is going to be more of the play. Are we going to be able to drive more line and cut back? So I'd say those are the two biggest things personally you're taking into account. Me is right winger, kind of looking at what I'm going to be up against in my face. What will I do off of that? And then backline structure off of that, and seeing what kind of balls should I be gearing up are going to be probably higher trend or a higher success rate.
Love it. You like to get forward a lot, huh? As a left back?
Yeah, man. Once I'm fit and everything like that, you get those few games, those first early games of the season. Once you're confident moving, I love to bomb forward.
No, nothing like it, man. Nothing like it.
Yeah, exactly. Give me some green in front of me, and I'm gonna bomb forward.
For sure. So you talked about yoga before. I know you were doing that stuff in Sweden. What type of stuff are you doing outside of training? You hitting the gym? Are you doing yoga? Any extras you're getting into?
100%. Ideally in season, just with such a high cardio rate, trying to get into the gym. I'd say ideally if you have a good setup and everything like that, getting into a gym 3 times a week, I'd say, is a good little minimum base. Nothing too crazy. You're never really maxing a ton in season, but just something to try and maintain some sort of muscle so you're not completely thinning out towards the end. Not getting too prone to injury. And then yoga for me, the peak of my yoga when I was like really doing it in Sweden, I was doing it 4 times a week, like minimum. And best I felt, honestly. And it was more of just kind of.
What would you say you felt? Like what kind of benefits?
Just flexibility and mobility. I feel like I recovered so much quicker than when I wasn't doing it. It was almost like cutting my recovery time in half, and I could, and in turn, was able to put harder training in. When you're feeling better, you can push it a little harder, a little longer.
Love that.
So fell out of it a little bit. I still do it. Got to get definitely more consistent, especially getting older. Only helps.
For sure.
Yeah, now definitely trying to do it. 2-3 times a week, keep it rolling. But I can't preach yoga enough, man.
For sure.
I swear by it. If you
it's great stuff.
Really if you really can block out that 45 minutes, man, a day to just get your body right, but not only your body right, I mean mentally too. You get to take that breath for you for a little bit.
For sure.
It's a game changer. Your psyche as an athlete, you know how it goes. It's
absolutely
constantly and like analyzing and reassessing on a daily basis. One training can change your whole mood for the rest of the week, and sometimes 100%. You take that deep breath and you're like, hey, this isn't the end of the world. We're getting back at it tomorrow. That's
Love it.
An invaluable tool. Yeah.
Bro, with that being said, that's a good little leeway to lead into. I get that question a lot, in the DMs. Oh, how do you deal with a bad game? How do you deal with a bad training? How do you personally deal with, a bad training or game?
I would say definitely now I think I've got a healthier way of doing it. When you're younger, sometimes I didn't have a great way of dealing with it, or I would just, shell up, get mad. But now I'd say the best way I get over a bad game is that I really hit it hard on the film and don't shy away from it. Whereas sometimes you have a bad game, you just don't want to watch it. You don't want to look at it. You're like, that was a bad one. Getting older, once you can really look at a game and take it for what it is and take the ego kind of out of it, there's so much you can fix. And it's pretty easy if you get good at watching film and you do it long enough, or you have good coaches to help you through it.
Absolutely.
You're open to fixing the mistakes. You're shocked how quick you can do it usually if you have the capacity to be open to doing it, So I say now it's more hitting it head on. It's
yes, I love
it up to, hey, that was a bad game. I can't change that it was a bad game. It's just going to be a bad game, and I have a game coming up, and it's all up to me to not let it happen again.
100%.
Once you take that ownership for it, you can move on. You have peace with it. It happened, and trend. That's it.
Absolutely. No, a couple of things there. I mean, I think just like you said. And also what I think we don't realize sometimes is like we think we had a bad game, but then we look back at the film, we're like, damn, it actually wasn't that bad,
Right. That wasn't the end of the world like I thought it was.
Exactly. And then like you said, you look at the game, you see what you did well, chalk that up. You see what you did wrong, chalk that up, work on it during training, brush it off, and let's move on. That's all you can do.
100%. Yeah. You just got to look at it. Sometimes it's like having a bad game isn't the worst thing in the world, especially when you're younger. Because flat out, sometimes if you have a bad game and a team just outplays you, it gives you a nice a balance out of being like, this is what I'm up against. What did they do that worked against me? And how can I incorporate either stopping that or adding it to my game to, counteract what's going on? It's a lot of that.
Absolutely. No, I love that. You can always learn, Honestly, for me, one of the best things that I did this year out in Latvia, the captain of the team, who I had, really top class guy, played some high levels. After every game, we would just sit in my living room, and he would we would pick apart the game for 2 to 3 hours. All my movement, off the ball, on the ball, all the little details, man. Checking into a throw-in. Opening up space as a center midfielder, things like that. And it was just best thing I did out, probably for my career. So 100%. All the young guys and girls listening, if you can find a mentor, whether it's, player on your team, depending on where you're playing, a coach, to walk you through film, it's invaluable.
I mean, yeah, that's the truth. There's no shame in having something passed down to you, right? Like once you're open to learning and being a student of the game, it's kind of like one of those things. I had a coach that told me out in Sweden, and it really hit home because I remember it. But it's like he said, the day that you're done learning is the day you're done as an athlete. He's like, you might as well retire that day, because the day that you're not open to learning anymore, he goes, the game will pass you by. And I was like, wow, geez, sat with me for a while. I thought about it. I was like, that's the truth. So.
That's what I also loved about Sweden, man. I don't know if you saw, like a lot of the coaches out there are really ambitious, always wanted to learn, and were pretty open-minded. They were students of the game.
100%. Yeah, it's crazy the effort you see some of them put forth when they have a full other job they're doing. They work.
Exactly.
They're doing this. You find some more passion in those guys than you do at big time coaches in other countries or even here. It's a cool quality to see in them out there.
For sure. Yeah, man, just getting towards the end of the podcast. Couple questions. If you could go back to yourself at any age with the knowledge you have now, with that beautiful long hair of yours, what age would you go back to, and what would you tell yourself?
I think I would go back to when I was around 16, 17, and I would.
It's always the age, man.
Dude, that was the age that I could not be told a damn thing about football. I had a mission, and no one was getting in between me and that one-way track. And I would tell that kid, I would be like, the patience. I would talk about the patience aspect of things. That's what I would. If I had a bit more foresight at younger ages, definitely things could have played out different. Now, with that being said, I don't give it more than a second thought, because it won't. But just it's anything, right? Hindsight's 20/20. So I would just say the patience aspect as a young player can really change your trajectory, and always know that things are not the end of the world timeline wise. And if you are patient and put in the work, you will find the right opportunity more times than not.
Exactly. And especially at that age, I mean, those are key ages, between 15 and 19, when,
huge.
Parties start coming in, girls start coming in, all those distractions.
All the distractions.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, completely don't be social, don't have a social life, but watch what you do, watch the decisions you make, because the decisions, determine your outcome.
100%. And that's the crazy thing, right? With a sport that's, driven at such a young age on a world scale, is like, it sounds crazy or cliche when a parent's like, if you're not training, somebody else is. But in any sport more than ever, I mean, footy is that to a T. There are people putting in the work, and like you said, everything really in moderation. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Europe has a huge advantage. Obviously we're getting better here in the US, but those environments they set up for the kids, they go to these academies, they train next to the first team. They have that hope of that next step, that next path.
Right. They put it in your sight. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think for those, guys and girls listening who don't have that current path, what I always try to preach is set it up for yourself, set it up for yourself and make it your own little, youth academy. Do the best you can,
Without a doubt.
But yeah, man, last question. What are your top 2 tips for any younger footballer or any pro that's out of a contract trying to maintain their pro status, to keep on going, because sometimes, as you know, there are many lows in this sport. You have your ups and your downs.
100%.
What would be your top 2 to pass along?
To keep it going, like mentality wise, I would say top 2 things I would preach if you're, in that grind, the middle, back into your grind, whatever it is, but you're keeping it going, is don't stop doing the little things. Don't stop doing the extra technical shit. Don't stop taking it as serious when you're doing, just one touch passing with a boy at training and you're just doing it for that warm up. Those little things, once you start to let those habits fall and you start building a few bad ones, it's crazy how quick certain things can go wrong in your game. And then you're playing catch up, and catch up's only harder when you're older. It's
absolutely
body's older, all of that. So I would say the little things, definitely don't stop doing. You have to keep doing them. They might not be as fun, on, but they are so necessary.
For sure.
And then I would say just mentality is just, always think about it like the worst day in the office. I always say like the worst day I've ever had playing soccer is still, nowhere near the worst day outside of it. That's
Facts.
it's still a pretty darn good day when you can look in the mirror afterwards and say you're doing it as a job. So, the game's always going to give you more reasons to quit than to keep going, right? It's kind of the nature of sport, but and take that step back and realize that even the lowest of low during your sport, you got one crack at it. And if you keep that mentality healthy and alive to keep doing it, regardless of the situation you find you're in next, even if it's not ideal, there's something to be said to take away from it for sure.
100%. Amen to that. And to the first point, I love that because it's like, I think we find like the guys who give in or, stop playing are, which I'm not saying is the worst thing in the world, but it's like, those guys who still wanted to keep playing, I think it's like what you said, they let those standards lower a little bit. You know what I mean? Like they stop, like you said, they stop waking up early and doing the extras. They go through the motions because they don't think they have a team, offering them a trial or a contract, whatever it is. And that's what kind of nips you in the butt, like you let those standards go down. You don't do the little things you used to do that got you there or that got you to the player you are. And then the opportunity comes and you're not ready. So it's like the cliche saying of stay ready so you don't have to get ready
couldn't be more true, man. Couldn't be more true.
Yeah. Because you know how it is in footy, man. Like, you could be waiting around for a couple months, no options. Boom, one day your agent hits you up. Boom, you have 3 options. And it's like, damn, I wasn't putting in the work for a couple months. Now what?
100%. You're like, oh, now I got to go on a 3-day trial. You're like, oh,
exactly.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're the man, bro. I appreciate you coming on. That hour flew by. It was a great conversation.
100%, dude. Glad we finally got it to fucking happen, man.
For sure. I appreciate the insights. And yeah, man, if the people want to follow you, reach out. You could just drop the GOAT, the Instagram, and then
100%. Yeah, the GOAT Kozielek. Find me on there and those mutual followers. I'm sure you can find me. Yeah, and feel free, young players, reach out. I'm pretty open to stuff like that. I try to pass it forward, getting older. So would love to hear from anybody. Reach out with any questions, stuff like that. And yeah, just trying to help the community, man.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you. I'll definitely see you soon, and stay healthy, brother.
Sounds good, dude. I'll talk to you soon, man. Peace.
See you, brother.
Peace.